idea behind this project was to make original prints and have each one be unique. What I wanted to try to bring in were the aspects of my work, and one of the things that I've always been attracted to is I'm very much into the looseness and the expressiveness of painting. With that in mind, I created basically these paintings on Mylar. Really loose, really quick, with a lot of brush strokes. These were shot into screens, and so now that gave me the opportunity to be able to print these images one on top of another or different images together, and each time I could set the registration up a little bit different on each print so that I started to create these different sort of backgrounds. When I'm printing, a lot of times what I'm doing is I'm blocking out certain areas of the print. And if you look closely, this area right here of this image, the blue image, has been masked off. So now when I print this image on top in a different color, I'm going to be able to remove this mask, and now it's going to appear like this image is not just strictly printed on top of these two other images. Instead, it's going to be sort of coming in or out from underneath this image and then over the top of the other one. The first step is that the painting, or that the paper's been hand colored, which is a process that they developed here, that they pad a bunch of different colors in order to give the background a little bit of richness. You know, you can see it goes from light to dark. So I wanted, you know, every little bit of the process and how I've approached, you know, the colors is to try to vary it as much as possible, to try to get away from that flatness. You know, I really want to be able to give them as much depth as possible. Before I even print any of those images on, what I did was I tore sheets of paper and laid them on top of this piece of paper, and then did one pass of a translucent white. There wasn't a ton of thought, you know, in terms of how I was going to cut the paper. I just tried to make each one completely different from the other, just to give myself different elements to work with. This one right here has just been printed, and it's a little bit difficult to tell, but areas of this thing has been masked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start peeling off this mask, and you'll see how I weave one image into the other. I wanted to try to use aspects of my work that I could translate into print. So one of the things I do a lot is I don't do a lot of masking, but I do a lot of cutting with a knife. So it's really easy and second nature for me to just approach this thing as if I were building a painting, only backwards, because in this case, my paintings are all paint that's been removed. And in this case, I'm adding areas, but then sort of taking them away again. One of the things that I think helps is that because I don't have a specific idea of what these prints are going to look like, and I'm not working towards an end product, you know, you get that sort of that very sort of spontaneous sort of feeling with these things because they're not planned at all, and it becomes my approach to working on them becomes much more of a dialogue with what's in front of me. So each time I print, each time I mask something and peel something off, I've got a different image, and I have to react to whatever's there in order to continue building the print and building the composition. What I'm doing here in the studio, all of the actual printing part of the project is done. So I have the pieces of paper prepared with the images, and what I'm doing here is that I'm masking each print and then cutting a mask on it. I'm creating this drawing by taking away material, and I'm using the image here as kind of a roadmap for what I'm going to cut out. I tried drawing and painting on top of these, but it always seemed like it looked more like an afterthought to do that. In this case, it really, by doing it in this way, the quality of the line that I get when I'm doing this mask and spraying it and peeling it off lends itself, I think, a little bit more to the medium and to the piece, and it really integrates a lot better than if I were to have done the print and then painted on top of it or drawn something on top. You know, it's a very kind of quick and organic process. You know, I'm basically kind of playing around with the images and the composition that's there, and then from this, depending on, once I'm done cutting the entire thing, you know, depending on the color scheme or whatever the image looks like, I'll choose different colors to spray that'll work well with what's there. And so this one over here is actually one that's already been sprayed, and I was just getting ready to start removing the masking material. But you can see it'll really give you a sense of kind of the quality. Here, I'll take off the big piece. Kind of the quality of the lines that I'm looking for. And what's really nice about this too is that the quality of the paint when it's sprayed is very different from the quality of the ink that's on the paper from the printing process. So there are all kinds of different visual textures. I've always tried to bring drawing and painting together. Because I love the expressive quality of the paint, but then I also love the immediacy of the line. And what I found is that when I try to either draw on top of an existing painting, or in this case, one of these prints in a traditional way with either, you know, a brush or a pencil or something like that, it always seems like an afterthought. It doesn't integrate well with the painting. Whereas when I'm using the knife and creating these very, very clean lines, I can still be as loose as I want to be because I'm actually doing it by hand, but the quality of the line that happens is one that's much, much cleaner and integrates really well with the process. It would be too much of a contrast, I think, if I were to just draw directly on top of the print. In this case, I'm removing myself in the sense that I'm creating a mask and then painting it and then peeling it off. And that sort of that distance from the actual hand on the prints is what sort of gives it its line quality and gives it that same kind of look that you would get in one of my paintings. I love the materials. I love the quality of paint. I love that it can be completely loose, and by being loose like that, you can also create a lot of energy and a lot of movement. So essentially, they're really about their paintings about painting. Their paintings about sort of capturing movement, or not trying to capture it, but actually try to preserve it so that when you look at it, it's still there and it's not just a snapshot. I don't have a planned out idea of what the painting is supposed to look like before I start it, because I want there to be that element of surprise. If I'd planned it out, if I'd done a drawing ahead of time to make the painting, I'd be repeating myself and trying to get to an end point. I don't know what the end is here until I'm done.